new rules have been released on how federal workers are judged, rewarded, and fired. Now, the intent is to make the whole process more competitive, more honest, to separate the good workers from the bad workers. But will it even work? And how will you be affected? Let's get into it. The Office of Personnel Management dropped a bombshell memo this week. The memo rewrites the rules on how 2 million federal workers are rated. The Trump administration says they're tired of the overinflated ratings. Is that true? Are performance evaluations overrated? Are too many people getting outstanding or exceeds expectations? From my perspective, the answer is yes. I think entirely too many people have been getting the top block. And it's really demoralizing and discouraging if you're in an office, if you're in the cubicle farm, let's say, and the person next to you, you know they're not putting forth 100%. They might be putting forth 50, 60, 65%, maybe. And they get the same performance bonus as you. So in the federal government, every year, you could potentially get a performance bonus. Or at the 6-month mark, you might get a mid-year performance bonus. And if there's no distinction between a top performer and a low performer, it's frustrating. The acting OPM director said performance management across the federal workforce has fallen short of what the American people should expect. A new performance management system is rolling out October 1st, 2026. So that's next year. Now, what's changing with this new system? Well, the first thing is OPM wants fewer workers getting the top ratings. That means federal agencies and supervisors should not be slapping outstanding ratings just because a worker has a pulse. So they have to actually show they're doing something above and beyond to earn that outstanding rating. And this is very similar, this idea anyway, is very similar to what you see in the Army with commissioned officers. They can only give certain amount of people the top rating. It's less than half, 49% or lower get the top rating. Otherwise, you have something called a constrained profile. It is physically impossible to submit an evaluation if your profile does not support it. OPM's memo says a fully successful rating should mean you're meeting all job expectations and contributing to your agency's goals. Anything above that, like an outstanding or an exceeds expectations, that means you're doing something outside of your typical duty scope. So maybe you're volunteering for assignments. You're raising your hand saying, hey, I can go help. You're helping other individuals outside of your office. You didn't have to do that. There's nothing in your position description that says it, but you're doing it anyway. You're being proactive. You're helping the agency in those type of ways. Maybe you're always turning in assignments early. That could be another thing that sets you apart to get that top rating. Next, OPM's focused more on poor performers. The memo says that federal agencies need to update their policies. So if you have a problem worker, if someone's not cutting it, they have to go. They want agencies to use the 3 R's. So that's remove, reassign, or reduce. And what has been happening over the past decades is usually people get reassigned. Now, occasionally you might see someone get reduced, but it's more likely that somebody asks for a desk audit. And then after HR and OPM review your position description, they're like, well, we're going to have to reduce you. You're a GS11 right now, but you really should be a GS7. And that's devastating. So that's what it means to have a desk audit. The vast majority of them, I want to say like 70, 80% of desk audits, they end up in a reduction. So a lot of times it's not in your best interest to request one. But for poor performance, this memo is talking about a 30-day performance improvement plan. No more long, drawn-out second chances, third chances. You know, a performance improvement plan, a PIP, that could have gone on 90 days, over 90 days. Now the standard is 30 days. 30 days, you don't show improvement, then you're gone. And if you're on probation, you don't even have to wait that long because there was a new executive order that came out saying that really agencies can fire probationary workers for pretty much any reason. They don't even need to have a solid reason under the latest executive order. Oh, and supervisors, they're not off the hook either because there's a new element that will be added in their evaluations. It's going to be called something like team accountability. How are you managing the performance within your team? Who have you put on a PIP? Who are you trying to remove from the agency? things like that. So that's going to be an additional element. There's already like between 3 to 7 elements. So go ahead and just plus 1 to that. And then HR is going to be responsible for training those supervisors on that requirement. This memo doesn't really give exact stats, and one concern is there's no forcing mechanism. Like we talked about earlier, the Army has a forcing mechanism. There's no way you can circumvent that. You have to follow it. Now, what OPM is talking about here, this is strongly encouraging it. But what is the forcing mechanism? If you have a supervisor that just wants to continue to do whatever the heck they want to do, how will you bring it to their attention that that's no longer acceptable? Does this mean the supervisor goes on a PIP because he's not enforcing this new guidance from OPM? The memo does focus on poor performance as far as what can you do to address it. So it says that agencies can use Chapter 43 actions, which require the 30-day PIP, or Chapter 75 actions, which you don't even need a PIP for that. You just need evidence that they're not cutting it. But what is the definition of poor performance? What does that even mean? If I ask you that, you would have a different definition than me, and maybe the next guy might have a completely different definition. We can simply say, well, you're not meeting the standard. There are expectations, and you're not meeting those expectations. But a lot of it, I think you can agree with me on this, is a lot of it is subjective. It is subjective, right? Whether or not we think someone is doing a good job or not, or just barely meeting the standard. And this happens every day. A federal employee will go from one agency where they're getting outstanding ratings and they transfer agencies, or they could just transfer division. They get a new supervisor. That's the key component. The new supervisor, a new person with their own subconscious bias, with their own unique personality. And all of a sudden, they find out that they're below average. How could that have happened, right? It happens because it's subjective. As much as we would want to make it objective, it's really not, because people are all different. So this new system could be seen as a double-edged sword. If you're on a team right now, everyone likes you, your supervisor likes you, you're a strong performer, then you're probably going to like something like this, especially if they bump up those bonuses. But if you're having difficulties right now, if there's personality conflicts with members of your team, especially your supervisor, or if you're just generally a low performer, not everybody performs at the same level. Some people, they kind of sandbag, and it has to do with not necessarily their competency level, but what's happening in their life. Are they going through a divorce? Are they in deep debt? Are they trying to make school decisions for their kids? There's a lot of things that weigh on a person's mind that impacts and affects performance. So what does that mean? Let's say a person's been a rock star for 10, 15 years, and now they're going through some crazy life changes. They go on leave to try to figure it out, but it can't be figured out in a period of weeks. And now they're performing at a lower level. Is that an excuse to cut them out of the agency completely? To take all those years of civil service and say, well, it's too bad because last quarter you did absolutely horrible, so we have to let you go. That's a tough decision that the leadership in the agency is going to have to make. An anonymous Department of Labor employee said they're worried about arbitrary firings under these rules, especially in agencies exempt from union protections. Federal agencies have to start reporting to OPM by the end of next month, letting them know how many employees have been put on a PIP, how many employees have been disciplined or removed, because OPM is going to start tracking all of this to include reductions in grade, suspensions, removals, even lawsuit settlements. Another thing that you need to remember with this is OPM now has the authority to reach into your agency and fire a federal employee, because the president gave OPM that authority. Now, they haven't used it. So far, OPM got in a lot of trouble when it came to the probationary purge. But when it comes to somebody who's off probation and reaching in there, going over a supervisor's head to fire a federal employee, they haven't done that yet. When they do it, because I imagine they will eventually, it'll probably get legally contested. By October 2026, October of next year, this is going to be the new system all federal employees are going to fall underneath. It means fewer top ratings, faster firings, and then it says something really interesting here in the memo. It ties performance plans to the president's policy priorities, which can be seen as a shift from the apolitical civil service we used to have. We've never seen this type of language when it comes to the Biden administration or when it comes to any other presidential administration, there wasn't such a heavy focus on the executive orders or the president's policies. It was more towards laws and regulations, not necessarily executive actions or executive orders. Also, OPM's promising new awards guidance by September 2025, this year, just in a few months. And they're looking at something called meaningful incentives. So we're going to have to wait and see what meaningful means, because I don't think it's going to mean the same bonuses that we're seeing executives get, SESs get. If you're an SES in the federal government, something like 75% of them, or it could be more, they get $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 or even more a year, where your normal federal employee might get $1,000 to $3,000 before taxes. After taxes, it's much smaller. But usually that's common, I would say, in the DC area at least. A federal worker will get $1,000 to $3,000. Now, then they could get that mid-year performance bonus. That could be another $1,000 or $2,000, but it pales in comparison. A big question is, are bonuses comparable to the private sector? The answer is no. Generally not. Because if you look at the private sector, if you have an executive in the private sector, they can easily get 100% of their pay as a bonus. Then you have profit sharing, you have stock equity, you have all kinds of things over there. So executives, no way. What about just, your average worker? So it really depends on what industry you're looking at. But if you look at the finance industry, if you look at the tech industry, you can see workers getting 10%, 20%, 30% of their salary as a bonus. In some, we mentioned finance, right? Finance. So in banking, you can easily get $20,000, $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 for a bonus at the end of the year. And then ideally that comes around October, November, December. Some people look at it as a Christmas bonus, and it's quite nice. Nothing like that is even coming close to what's happening over at the public sector, over in the federal government. And why does the private sector even give out these bonuses? Well, in one word, it's retention. They realize that money retains high quality workers. That's something that's kind of lost on the public sector right now with the federal government. But not everybody gets bonuses, and I understand that. You have a large group of the American workers that get nothing. They barely crack minimum wage. They're at $15, $18, $20 an hour, and that's all they know, because when they look at their friends and their family, they're barely making anything. They're making like $40,000, $50,000 a year. And they extrapolate that with the rest of the country. I think everybody's earning that much. But if you look in these cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, Chicago, Austin, if you look in these cities, you'll see that people in the tech and finance industry, they're actually making a lot more than that. So in addition to this, we are seeing $100 million going to OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, in order to facilitate the widespread layoffs that everyone's anticipating. So they're going to reorganize the government. They're trying to give the president more authority. And if you want to know more about that, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.